and welcome to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. My name is Jesse, and I'll be your host. So on today's episode, we are going to head to the hospital to go and welcome our new baby brother into this world. We're also going to, cry ourselves to sleep, if we could get any sleep, having this new baby. And then also, we're going to go on an adventure in the woods with our best friends. But, on today's episode, we are going to be covering a little movie from 1998 called The Rugrats Movie. Now, I am getting back into recording a little bit because I did a lot of pre-record for October, so this episode you're hearing today is like the first episode of November of this year, so, back into the swing of it, but it'll be all good. Now, with the Rugrats in particular, I mean, I am a child of the 90s, and for me at least, Rugrats was a huge thing. I mean, I definitely watched that show so much. Oh my God, so much. And so, I definitely saw this in the theater. That was my history of, having, dragging my mother to it or something. I did the same thing with, Doug, when Doug had his little movie that was released by Disney or whatever, and seeing Harriet the Spy in theaters as well. I was a Nickelodeon kid, so this is a huge deal for me to have seen this, and also right now at least it is on Paramount Plus, for example. It was actually released in November of 1998, so it is actually celebrating, I guess technically it would be celebrating its dear God in heaven. Oh my God, it's been oh geez, I guess 25 years? Yeah, 25 years. That's so fucking crazy. Oh, okay. Well, happy birthday. Happy early birthday, I guess, to the Rugrats movie. But we'll talk about the movie and all that kind of stuff. But as we normally do on this show, but that's just my history, though. Like I said, that's my history. Like I said, with this property, if you will, and now that I've learned more about just Nickelodeon as a whole, and also just the Rugrats a little bit as well during my research of this episode, I still like the Rugrats. I haven't watched the reboot or anything like that they're doing on Paramount Plus, I believe. And I haven't watched that or anything, but I still really like the original movie, and the original show, but also I did like this movie for the most part. But yeah, we'll get all into that though. We'll talk about a little bit about the history of this franchise, if you will, the movie itself, and we'll go over the plot of it and all that kind of fun stuff, and go into all of that. But without further ado, let's move into some of our figures of this film. So the Rugrats movie premiered at Grauman's Chinese Theater on November 8th, 1998, meaning it is celebrating its 25-year anniversary today when you're hearing this. And then it was actually widely released on the 20th of November. But it premiered on today, which is kind of cool. We're looking at a runtime of about 80 minutes, and then it was distributed by both Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon Movies, and this is actually the second feature from Nickelodeon Movies, the first being Harriet the Spy, and it's the first Nicktoon to also get its own movie. And then we're looking at about a $24 million budget of this film. So for the weekend ranking gross, this was at number one with $27,321,470. And it was actually the top of the weekend as well. It was pretty much at the top of the box office for a bit until it got taken over by The Faculty, actually, funny enough. And yeah. And I will also say too, so let me go through a little bit. So domestically, it made about $100,494,675, and then internationally, it made about $40 million. So we're looking at about $140,894,675. So this movie does have the distinct pleasure of being the first non-Disney animated feature film to actually gross over $100 million domestically. So now it's been, kind of overtaken, obviously, and it was beat out by the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, of course. But I will say at least this movie does have the distinction of being the first not Disney movie to actually make $100 million. So that's pretty good. Good for you, the Rugrats movie. For like the Rotten Tomatoes score, we're looking at about a 59% from 51 reviews. And then a 50% for about 50,000 ratings. So we're split on it. And then obviously, and then of course it's a 3.1 out of 5 on Letterboxd. But I mean, they're very much like this is a kid's movie, so it's not exactly made for the parents or anything. I guess unless parents liked the Rugrats or something. But yeah, that's what that was. Now, when we're talking about the cast and the crew of this movie, so our particular directors are Norton Virgilin and Igor Kovalev, I believe. So they did this movie, but they also did the Rugrats Go Wild movie, and that is the crossover movie between the Rugrats and the Wild Thornberrys. Also, the Wild Thornberrys is pretty lit too. So, but that was that. I don't even know if they'd worked on the Rugrats TV show like that, but they were brought in for this, so it was a co-direction type of thing going on. The writers of the movie were David N. Wise and J. David Stem, I believe. So there's some guys who wrote a couple different movies. So Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, which was a movie that came out in the 2000s and then got turned into a TV show on Nickelodeon. They wrote that. They also wrote the sequel to this, Rugrats in Paris, the movie, which has a song by Cyndi Lauper that just makes me cry, and I love it. God, Cyndi Lauper's so good. They also wrote Clock Stoppers, the, Jesse Bradford movie from 2000 or whatever the hell. Why was it a thing? I have no idea either, but they wrote that. And then also, fun fact as well, they also wrote All Dogs Go to Heaven, or at least one of them did. I think it was the Jay David guy. I think he wrote that. But anyway, so yeah, kind of all over the place a little bit. Our composer is the one and only Mike Mothersbaugh. He is one of the founding members of Devo, but he is also like kind of a very well-known composer now. So he did like Cocaine Bear. He did the soundtrack for 13 or the score for 13. He did the Royal Tenenbaums. He's the composer of Drop Dead Gorgeous, and also as well Halloween Town, and a couple different DCOMs as well, I think. And he's kind of the go-to Nickelodeon composer as well. He has also been involved with pretty much all of the like Rugrats stuff he's done, but he's also done, I think, some other things for Nickelodeon as well. So I hope he has a good bag, if anything. Like, that's good for him. The cinematographer, so obviously this is an animated feature, so it wasn't an actual, like, studio. It's a studio, but it's an animation studio. So, Klasky Schupo, who we'll talk about in a little bit, but they created the damn Rugrats, and it was the big thing that they had. And then the editor is John Bryant and Kimberly Retberg, who I think she might be married now to someone else, and she doesn't have that name anymore, but at the time that's what it was. So they actually edited like the Wild Thornberrys movie and also Rugrats Go Wild, so that's what kind of they had done before and all of that. So that's like the crew of the movie, and then of course you have all sorts of different people, but those are like kind of the main big folks, of that particular production crew. So our cast is kind of a mix of different people that I'll talk about a little bit, but we'll talk about our babies cast. One of the things I think is really cool about Rugrats is legitimately all of the babies on this show were all voiced by women, which is really, really cool to me. Obviously this was created by a woman too, which I just think is really boss. And who knows, I think also had a little bit to do with its longevity it had, but we'll talk about all that as well as we talk about the series as a whole. But we have, and pretty much all of these people originated these roles as well. So you have like, E.G. Daily, Elizabeth Daily, whatever you want to call her. She's Tommy Pickles. She is from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. She plays Dottie. She's also from Valley Girl. She plays Lori. She's in Better Off Dead, where she, I think, plays kind of herself. But also she is, Buttercup. She is Tommy Pickles. Buttercup from the Powerpuff Girls. She has had like a really interesting career, and a really kind of interesting life too. Like she, was like a musician in the 80s and had like a #1 dance hit. She like got married and had children and also divorced Rick Solomon. That's a whole thing. That's fucking crazy. The guy who had a sex tape with Paris Hilton, that's just that's just her ex-husband. It's fine. But her life's really interesting. I would always recommend any sort of interview and I think she's also really candid as well. So like I would recommend looking up any sort of E.G. Daily type of interviews and stuff like that. She's just really interesting to find out more about, and she's kind of been an open book, honestly. But she's what a woman, Anyway, so that's E.G. Daily. Then we have a little actress, named Tara Strong, who plays Dill Pickles, who just cries throughout the movie. So Tara Strong, previously known as Tara Cherendoff. I just have my notes that she's Tara fucking Strong. She literally is just so many different characters. She's everything. She's literally so many different voices. She's Dill Pickles. Every iteration of Dill Pickles is pretty much her. But she literally is like Bubbles from Powerpuff Girls. She is... What am I talking about? Powerpuff Girls and Rugrats? Like, whatever, it's fine. That shows you what I watched when I was a kid. Tara Strong has just been... She's a voiceover, like, queen, really. So very well known, so vast with what she has done. She's Timmy Turner, from the Fairly Odd Parents, and a lot of things on Nickelodeon, a lot of things in Disney, all this kind of stuff. Very talented. Was in 2 made-for-TV Sabrina movies. Sabrina the Teenage Witch movies. It's cool. I just think she's such a boss. So yeah, Tara Strong's in this movie. Christine Cavanaugh, who unfortunately has passed away, but she is the originator of Chucky Finster. She was also in I think it was probably a voice or maybe an actress in Jerry Maguire. Also, she's the original voice of Babe, Pig in the City. But she's had all sorts of different voiceover roles and things of that sort, and she unfortunately has since passed away, but we love you, Christine Cavanaugh. She just she's such an interesting voice, and I really liked her. And then you have Kath Soucie. So she's also very well known in the sphere. So she was in Zootopia, Space Jam, Curious George. She originated Phil and Lil's character, and also Betty DeVille. Don't worry, we'll talk about Betty DeVille a little bit. But that's them. Tress MacNeille is also in this film. She plays Charlotte Pickles. Tress MacNeille is an icon. She's a mom from Futurama, but also she was in Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, where she played the voice of Aunt Morgana and also the newscaster lady in the beginning of the movie. So good. And also a groundling and a friend of Cassandra Peterson. So that's cool. She's also in Spaceballs. And again, she's just had I'm pretty sure she was on The Simpsons for different voices and things like that. So, just really great. Jack Riley, for example, he's Stu Pickles. He was in Boogie Nights, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes. He's also since now passed away, but he was really cool. And Joe Alasky as well. He was Grandpa Lou, and he was in Forrest Gump, Casper, all sorts of movies. I think I don't know if he's passed away, actually. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, but that's kind of your main people, I guess. Joe Lasky has since passed away, unfortunately. You have Philip Proctor. He is Howard DeVille. He's been in a couple different things as well. He at least did that. And then you have Michael Bell does Drew Pickles and Chaz Finster and all that. So he's a big voiceover guy too. He's done a couple different things, a couple crazy things. But yeah, that's him. God, what else? Yeah, those are like the big ones, really, honestly. But then you have all sorts of guest people in this. So, like, you have David Spade as one of the Rangers in this movie. Also, Whoopi Goldberg, her voice as well. Tim Curry is playing the newscaster who shows up throughout, which is then funny because then he's also in the he is one of the only people who's been in all of the Rugrats movies, because he's in this movie. He also voices somebody in the Paris movie, and I think he's also in Rugrats Go Wild because he's Nigel Thornberry. So there's that. Andrea Martin's in this movie. She plays the aunt in the beginning. Love that for her. Of course, Cree Summers in the movie because she's Susie Carmichael, and Susie at least has a little role in this. A couple different things, like Margaret Cho plays like the cop, like the lady cop in this, and also like Edie McClurg is like one of the nurses at the when Dee Dee's gonna have her baby, and all that kind of stuff. And there's this scene where all of these babies are singing. We'll get into it, but that is a collection of different song people, musicians. So like Lenny Kravitz, Iggy Pop. We won't talk about it. Lisa Loeb, who's actually a fan of the Rugrats, and had a song on the soundtrack all day, which is cool. Is a banger. And also 2 of the B-52s were also a part of these baby singers. Beck was one. Lou Rawls was one. Yeah, dude, all over the place. So I don't know, man. It's so crazy. But yeah, that's like our voice cast. It's kind of all over with everything. But, you know, we'll talk about that. But we're going to, now that we talked about the voice cast a little bit, where they all kind of came from, talked a little bit about the figures of the movie, I think it's important to then go in now to a little bit about the history of the Rugrats, how did this movie come to be, and all that good stuff. So before we talk about the plot of this movie, or just talk about it in general, right? Because again, this movie is something where it's like 80 minutes, you know, so really like 70 something minutes without credits. So like, you know, we'll talk about it a little bit, but like, I think we'll end up talking about just the series as a whole. But we got to talk a little bit about just how the series came to be. But like, we got to talk first though about Klasky Csupo Inc. That is the company that this cartoon was created by. So it was founded in 1982 by producer Arlene Klasky and a Hungarian animator named Gabor Csupo, hence the company's name. They were a husband and wife duo. I don't know if they're still together, actually, funny enough. No, they aren't. They divorced in 1995, but they were married for quite a while, and they were married as part of being on this show together. So the big thing for them, some of the history of this particular company, was that Klasky Csupo got its start in 1982. It was founded in the spare bedroom of a Hollywood apartment where, like I said, Arlene Klasky and Gabor Csupo were living during their marriage. So about 1 year later, they expanded and moved to a new location, opening its first facility in Hollywood. So Klasky Csupo was initially distinguished by its work on logo designs, commercials, feature films, trailers, TV show titles, promos, and indent spots for a wide variety of clients. So they were an animation studio, really, because both of these people were animators. So that was kind of what they did. They earned a reputation of just being imaginative and innovative. And so they left the Seward Street location to open a second facility in 1988 at the corner of Fountain and Highland Avenues. And so this studio soon grew to include about 6 buildings that have become well known in Hollywood. And so like the exterior walls of these buildings have a lot of their characters they created and everything like that. And so the studio's first big break really came in about 1987 when James L. Brooks of Gracie Films commissioned the studio to actually produce the title sequence for a comedy series called The Tracey Ullman Show. Tracey Ullman, for those who don't know, she's like, I think a British lady who had a TV show, like a little variety show, kind of like Carol Burnett Show a little bit, but not really, but like kind of sort of. Anyway, in addition to this main title sequence that they made, Klasky Csupo was also given the opportunity to produce and animate a new series of 1-minute cartoons that featured a family called The Simpsons. It was created by Matt Groening. I don't know if you've heard of it or anything, but, Klasky Csupo, though, they produced and animated all 48 of these shorts that they did. And when it began airing, one of the most popular segments on the show, they ended up making a weekly half-hour series entitled The Simpsons. Again, I don't know if you heard the show or anything, but I don't know. But maybe they have a whole part of a theme park that's it doesn't matter, whatever. But yeah, Klasky Csupo, they oversaw and animated every episode of the first 3 seasons of that series. And that resulted in the studio sharing the 1989 to 1990 and 1990 to 1991 Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Program with Gracie Films. So needless to say, Klasky Csupo, they got a break. They got a pretty big break when it came to doing part of the Simpsons stuff, which was cool. So they did the Do the Bartman little music video that they did, which was kind of a big thing. Actually, one of the animators was actually the one who conceived the idea of the Simpsons having yellow skin and Marge having blue hair, kind of a thing. So that's kind of cool. And so in 1992, Gracie Films switched domestic production of The Simpsons to Film Roman from 1992 to 2016. So Csupo was asked by Gracie Films if they could bring in their own producer to oversee the animation production, but declined, stating that they wanted to tell me how to run my business. And so Sharon Bernstein of the Los Angeles Times wrote that Gracie executives had been unhappy with the producer Csupo had assigned to The Simpsons, and said the company also hoped to obtain better wages and also working conditions for animators at Film Roman. And of the 110 people he employed to animate The Simpsons, Csupo had to lay off about 75 of them. So that happened. But, so they ended up not being a part of The Simpsons any longer, for whatever reasons and all that. But then they did get a little bit of a boon when in 1991, so I found this information from a little documentary I've mentioned before that I've watched called The Orange Years, which I think might still be on Hulu. I hope it goes to Tubi so that more people can watch it, honestly. But it's about Nickelodeon as a whole and its whole history, and it does focus on the 90s Nickelodeon television shows and things like that. And one of the ones that they do mention about is literally the Rugrats, obviously. But basic idea is that Nickelodeon started making their own content because a lot of their stuff was really coming from acquired programming, stuff that was not original to Nickelodeon, and things like that is what they were doing. So when they had the chance, they kind of got a big break with Double Dare, for example, and even something like Hey Dude, when they started making that. So they were like, all right, well, we're a kids network and we should have some kind of animation that is our own. And so Vanessa Coffey, who was the executive at the time, she was the development executive for animation, she was brought in, and they were looking for talent to pitch stuff to her to create these, what were then we end up calling Nicktoons. And so the 3 Nicktoons that ended up getting chosen were Doug created by Jim Jenkins, this show Rugrats created by Klasky Csupo, and then Ren and Stimpy created by John Kricfalusi. Blah. But all of those ended up being the Nicktoons, and needless to say, with the Nicktoons, that became a big deal because this was a way for Nickelodeon to kind of really set themselves apart when it came to children's programming and things of that sort, because they made their own cartoons, and all of these cartoons really hit it big. Truly, Ren and Stimpy again, we won't talk about John Christopher Lucy. Go watch Happy Happy Joy Joy, the documentary about that, because you'll learn all about him and how much of a piece of shit he is. But, but like Ren and Stimpy was kind of like the, how did the hell does this get on Nickelodeon? But like it was very like subversive and weird and just like all this, right? Doug was so just very much like kind of slice of life a little bit, which similar to the Rugrats, I think it kind of was a little bit. But Doug was very much about like kind of the preteen thing going on, very slice of life, very Jim Jenkins, of him, which was great. That then ended up going to Disney. But the Rugrats though too, I think with the Rugrats, that was really just it's not hard to say, I guess, but like as somebody who lived through it, I mean, Rugrats really was for the longest time, it was the longest running TV show on Nickelodeon. Truly was. And it still is kind of one of the longest running ones that they had. It lasted for a good 10 years. Actually, I think it was on for 13 years, if I'm not mistaken. So it lasted for quite a bit. So, and now it's, come back in reboots form and everything like that. So I do think like there is something to be said for that. So yeah. So that's how pretty much like the basis of like who Klasky Csupo was. They also ended up making like All Real Monsters as well because of how like popular the Rugrats became. 'Cause really it was just that. During the time that Our World Monsters happened, they actually ended production on Rugrats due to the 65 episode rule, I guess. And then when Rugrats went into syndication, it exploded in popularity and the ratings were skyrocketing and advertising went off. Like it just, it prompted then Nickelodeon and Klasky Csupo to resume production on Rugrats. And the Rugrats has been kind of cited as like a show like The Simpsons, but for children. So that's a little bit of a Klasky Csupo, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Rugrats particularly as well. So this show premiered on August 11th of 1991, along with Doug and the Ren and Stimpy Show. And again, we had an initial installment of 65 episodes that spanned over 3 seasons, and all that good stuff. But again, Rugrats was formed by Gabor Csupo and Arlene Klasky, along with Paul Germain in 1989. So Klasky Csupo had the animation firm and all this stuff. Again, they had all of that, what I just told you. But the trio decided to create their own series in reaction to a Nickelodeon that was trying to make their own TV shows. Vanessa Coffey approached them to make a pilot and everything. And so they did end up making this with Nickelodeon. Peter Chung, who along with Klasky Csupo co-designed the characters and directed the series pilot as well as the opening sequence, he stated that Gabor wanted the babies to look strange instead of cute. So like the production was completed in 1990 and they submitted it over to Nickelodeon, who tested it with a pilot of children. So the pilot was tested on children and it seemed like it was good feedback. So Jerry Lead Laybourne then approved and bought the series, and then Chucky and Angelica were actually added after that. Once the pilot went to series. And then just other certain things. So like Paul Germain had like a girl bully in his like childhood. So like that's where Angelica came from. And a couple different things like this. But yeah, let's see what else is there. I'm just trying to see if there's anything in particular. But yeah, I think it was just interesting to see this kind of idea of these babies just like talking amongst one another, and then also the parents not knowing that they're talking, obviously, and just them staying in the same age forever was really weird, but it's fine. But the Rugrats really visualizes ordinary everyday activities through the eyes of a group of toddlers. So using their imaginations, these babies transform routine tasks into surprising adventures. And the babies, having a limited understanding of the world, like mispronounce words, they use improper grammar. Challenges often emerge because the babies misinterpret the adults, usually caused by Angelica's deceptive translations. And so like the grown-ups of Rugrats are like simultaneously quirky, they're overcautious and oblivious. And the series really portrays adults as these mysterious eccentrics. And episodes usually center on like a moral lesson that the babies will learn during their imaginative explorations. And I honestly think now that, that's what Wiki has told me, but like, that's such a good way of putting it, because I think that's why the show lasted for so long, because it was very much just taking this ordinary mundane thing and turning it into this like big, adventure, right? Whether it be you go to the doctor for the first time, or when you have that kind of thing, or when you get your hair cut for the first time, or like whatever, I don't know, or like, you don't know anything about like being an adult, right? So like the big thing that people like remember with like the Rugrats is the episode where like Tommy and Chucky, they like have a dream or something, and like they are just like big people, and they go to their job and they're paper pushers and stuff. Like that is so much like a comment on just like what it's like to be an adult and have to work, right? But like also it's just like, that's something where people are like, oh my god, no, I'm just that. Like that is who I am as an adult, really. I'm just a literal kid, like a baby, just like in a adult body, being like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, you know what I mean? So but I think there's that level of nostalgia. It's something where it is simplistic. It's very much like, it's turning something mundane into an adventure, and I think that's like so super cool. Like I'm down for that, and I also think too, in a fun way, there was something a little different to this as well. So like seeing specific things like a Jewish representation, I will very much tell that anything I know about Hanukkah or Passover, being that I'm not a Jewish person at all, anything I know about like Hanukkah or Passover or any of that stuff literally comes from the Rugrats, because I have watched these TV episodes, and they teach me all I need to know. So it's like, there you go. But that's exactly what it is. But seeing that on TV was really interesting. Obviously you could like be like, yo, was Betty DeVille like a low-key lesbian? You know what I mean? She had a husband, like what? But like, I mean, that's cool and all. And like Susie Carmichael, seeing like a black family living around, in the neighborhood, that's cool too. I mean, it's these different things where, obviously like this comes from, Klasky and Shupo's like kind of experiences as new parents and things like that. But also it's like, I don't know, it's just something different that you weren't always seeing, at that time. And then the other thing too, even though this was a part of it, right? I think that, not that I was alive in the 80s, but like from what I've gathered and what I've kind of understood, is that when it comes to cartoons, back in the 80s when they had cartoons, that was really a way to be able to sell toys specifically. Like, toy companies had these characters, and then then the particular cartoon would be kind of a means in order to sell toys, right? You had some random ones like Beetlejuice, which was obviously based off of a movie, or like even Bill and Ted had a cartoon, right? But like, these little things that kind of came from that. But I think something like the Nicktoons especially, this was not created to sell merchandise. It ended up selling merchandise because that's how a company like, Nickelodeon will make money, obviously. Or, making a big fucking movie like this, right? But like, these cartoons were really just made as a way to be like, hey, let's try to do this part of the business. We're a kids television company. Like, we should make our own cartoons. And I think that was a really smart way to do it. Because obviously Disney had been doing it already in a way, obviously, but even Disney Channel was always a little different too. Disney Channel is not the same as Disney Channel was not the same in the 90s as it is today, you know? It was still a little different. It was also still a premium channel. Nickelodeon then was one where you really could end up watching that quite a bit, which was cool. But yeah, it was a lot more accessible to people, I feel like. So that was really interesting too. But yeah, I mean, this thing went on for about a good 10 years, which is like crazy. And it also spawned like the All Grown Up series, of course, which followed the kids, the babies, to become preteens. And I will tell you what, oh my God. So the All Grown Up like special, that was my shit, because it came out when I was like literally like 9 years old or something, like legitimately. And like, that was my shit. Okay. Like I remember like watching that. I remember taping it, bitch. Like, oh my God. Like it was a revelation, y'all. It was such a revelation. And so like, you know, obviously that got really good ratings, because they were like, what the hell is going to happen when these kids grow up? Right. Amazing. And so that lasted from 2003 to 2008, that little show, which is cool. But then Rugrats itself ended in August 11th of 2004, which is funny because it also like premiered that same day, like 13 years before that, which is crazy. But yeah, that's a little bit about that. And then, you know, just like the reception, I mean, obviously this had like crazy ratings. It was one of the highest rated TV shows on Nickelodeon. It got pretty like positive reviews from critics and fans. Apparently Steven Spielberg referred to the series as one of the several shows that was one of the best children's programming at the time. He described Rugrats as a sort of TV Peanuts for our time. And it was also just a huge point with Nickelodeon. So Simya Zarghemhi, who she was the president of Nickelodeon at one point, she no longer is, but she was the president from 2006 to 2018. So she has talked about, for example, she said that during the past decade, when she was, you know, president and all that, Rugrats has evolved from a ratings powerhouse, being the #1 children's TV show on TV, to pop icon status. It has secured a place in the hearts of both kids and adults who see it from their own point of views. And yes, there was that. Jeff Jarvis reviewed Rugrats and stated that when The Simpsons was a segment on the Tracy Ullman Show, it was just a belt joke with hip pretensions, and as a series, it grew flesh and guts. It was my favorite cartoon until I discovered Nickelodeon's Rugrats, a sardonic, sly, kid's eye view of the world that skewers 30-something parents and Cosby kids. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just something where this show in particular really just turned something, it just turned everyday situations into something that was so cool. And it really, I think, spoke to kids, which is why it was something that lasted for so long, as a kid who was the target audience. Of course, there were some like there was a little bit of controversy with the Rugrats, and I'm not talking about the whole thing of like Angelica's mentally ill and all the babies are dead. I don't buy into that shit, but whatever. It was noteworthy, I mentioned earlier, for depicting like observable, identifiable Jewish families. So like Jewish, Christian, and Muslim religious groups gave the series high praise for their like special holiday episodes. Nonetheless, though, at one point, the Anti-Defamation League and the Washington Post editorial page castigated the series for its depiction of maternal grandparents of Tommy Pickles, who accused them of their characters' designs of resembling Nazi-era depiction of Jewish people. So that's not great. But they did get about 20 different... they won about like 20 different awards. So they won everything from like a Daytime Emmy Award, of course, countless Kids' Choice Awards as well. A lot of Daytime Emmys, a lot of these particular ones. They just won a lot of different awards, y'all, okay? They just did. They've also been given a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2001, which is so super cool. And yeah, it's just lauded as kind of one of the best, particular cartoons out there. And it is. I think it is really good, and it's one that, is really fun. Now, talking about the series as a whole, we then also have to talk about this movie, obviously, because that's the whole point of this podcast. But, the basic idea, though, general idea is that making Rugrats into a movie existed since the beginning of the series was. So the first attempt was in 1993 when Nickelodeon made a 2-year contract deal with 20th Century Fox to produce into material. But an unnamed Nickelodeon executive did not rule out the possibility to make films based on their existing properties. One of those that was proposed was Rugrats, along with the other Nicktoons, Doug and Ren and Stimpy. However, in 1994, Nickelodeon's parent company Viacom acquired Paramount Pictures, and Paramount would distribute the films instead. As a result, the contract that Fox had expired, with no films being produced, although, as I mentioned before, Doug got his own movie in 1999, which was released by Walt Disney Pictures, who owned Doug by that point. And so production on the Rugrats movie started a year later in 1996, and it then came about 2 years later. This was supposed to come out in 1999, but they didn't want to have it come out to... They didn't want it to come out around that time because there was other competition with like the Iron Giant and a couple other animated movies that were also coming out. So they decided to push it out in 1998. So there was that. Those are like the big things, I guess, really. And then also one of the fun things about the Rugrats movie is like the soundtrack's really fun too. But like there was actually so with Harriet the Spy, and whenever I cover Harriet the Spy, I'll talk a little bit about it. But Harriet the Spy had a little short in it, which would then end up becoming Hey Arnold. But this in particular, the Rugrats movie had a little short of it was just a little short of a little show that would end up becoming Cat Dog. So that was kind of cool that they could premiere those and it would be a big audience. And obviously this movie made over $100 million because kids were like going to it in droves. So it was cool to have this short be a part of the beginning credits or like, kind of a pre-thing before the show, to be able to get the word out about something like Cat Dog, which would then end up becoming a TV show. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, and that wasn't completely, off the course for something like Nickelodeon to do with that kind of a thing. But yeah, those are like kind of the big things you would need to know. So Paul Germain has said in a way that he doesn't hate the movie or anything, but he didn't exactly love everything about it. He didn't really like the story of the film. He felt that the film's writers didn't really understand what the series was about, and then thought that the scene where like Stu gives a watch to Tommy doesn't really work, as the adults aren't supposed to recognize that the babies are smart, And in addition, he felt that by giving Tommy a baby brother, Tommy was no longer the baby, which changed the story of the series for what Paul intended it to be. Again, I don't think he disowns it or he hates it. I just think maybe he was like, what are we doing? But it is what it is. But yeah, there's plenty of people, so Lisa Schwartzbaum from Entertainment Weekly, she gave the film a B. She praised the film for its appeal to both adults and children audiences, quote, juxtaposing the blithely self-absorbed parallel universes of small diapered children and their large dockered parents. But then like Ty Burr from Entertainment Weekly gave it a B-, criticizing that the film's issues sprung from its being, quote, bigger than the original series, thus it having more cultural references, out-of-place CGI scenes, and, quote, going into scary territory. Although he did praise the, quote, escaped circus monkeys for being, quote, scary in a good way, as well as a joke that was accessible to younger audiences. And Roger Ebert gave it a 2 out of 4, which is nice. He said the target audience was primarily younger children, and that while he as an adult disliked it, he, quote, might have liked it if he was younger and would recommend it for children. Thanks, Robert. Robert. Hey, Robert Ebert. Thanks, Roger. Anyway, so it's a little bit about the movie, the production of it. There's not too much to go into about this. There is a fun little making of, little like half-hour documentary you can find on YouTube. Just look up the making of the Rugrats movie. You'll find it. It's kind of cool. Yeah, so you'll hear about that a little bit if you want to look that up. I mean, the basic plot of this movie, so we find out that Dee Dee is pregnant with her second baby, which makes Tommy her son, played by E.G. Daily, and Dee Dee is Melanie Chartnoff, I believe. Anyway, so makes her son Tommy worry how this will change the family dynamic. The birth comes unexpectedly at her baby shower, and Dee Dee gives birth to a boy named Dill, or Dylan, really. Upon bringing him home, she and her husband Stu, played by Jack Riley, struggle to cope with Dill's constant outbursts, as a baby does. Tommy finds his new brother hard to get along with, but Stu assures him that one day he will be happy to have Dill in his family, and Tommy accepts his newfound responsibility as an older brother. So while Dill is still causing problems at the Pickles house, Phil and Lil suggest to use this Reptar wagon that Stu has made for a toy contest in Japan to win $500 to take him back to the hospital. They're like, okay, we need to take this baby back to the hospital, because that's how it works. Anyway, so as Tommy and Chucky argue with Phil and Lil, Angelica walks in, telling the babies to be quiet, and in the process, Dill snatches her Cynthia doll from her. Also, side note, Cynthia looks like she went to the tanning bed a little bit too much in this episode, or in this particular movie, so that made me a little uncomfortable, but that's okay. Anyway, so she fights Dill to get her doll back and accidentally kicks the Reptar wagon, which begins to drive away with the babies on board. And so they speed recklessly through the streets and land in the back of a van. It's a mattress van, and which crashes into the woods. And they just don't die, because you can't die in a Nickelodeon movie. Anyway, so Angelica shows no concern until she finds out that the babies have actually taken her Cynthia doll, which prompts her to take the family's dog Spike to find them and to help retrieve Cynthia. And so these babies are just like stuck in the woods. So Tommy leads the babies towards a ranger's cabin, believing it to be the home of a magical, quote, lizard, a mispronunciation of wizard, so who can grant their wish to go home. Unbeknownst to them, they are pursued and hunted down by a bloodthirsty, ferocious wolf. And on the way, they encounter monkeys who then actually hijacked a crashed circus train. They kidnap Dill, the monkeys do, and then Tommy's friends refuse to help rescue him, believing they're better off without him. Tommy sets off after his brother alone, and meanwhile, a family discovers that the babies are missing and set out to find them in the face of the media sensation, which has generated around these children's disappearances, because of course it did. Anyway, so Drew and Charlotte arrive, and Drew learns from Rex Pester, who is voiced by Tim Curry, that his brother lost Angelica, causing Drew to attack Stu. Also, side note about like the birthing and whatever. I love that they have the different birthing rooms in the hospital. They have like the old country room, and then they have like the underwater room. I was like, there are some rooms I want to know about in this hospital, because this looks awesome. Anyway. Oh, and we also have to talk about how like literally there is this is a musical too. There's so many different songs in this movie, which I'm kind of into. There are some bops too, but like there are some bops, like, you know, the All Day song by Lisa Loeb, and then like there's that song, and then just like the Take Me There song by Blackstreet and all that. Oh my God, what is it? The Gwen Stefani song, the No Doubt song with Elvis Costello. I Throw My Toys Around. Oh my God, it's so good. Anyway, but some of the actual like in like movie songs that the kids are singing, they're okay. But like A Gift from a Bob is kind of a bop, but like, you know, whatever, it's all good. Anyway, so Tommy then eventually finds Dill during a storm, and he struggles to take care of him because he's a year old. And so Dill continuously acts selfishly. Tommy eventually loses his temper and is about to pour mashed banana baby food onto Dill for the monkeys to eat him, which is very disturbing, by the way. This whole story, I mean, it's about babies and it's about like the Rugrats, obviously, but like this shit is so sad, honestly. Oh my God. Anyway. Shout out to E.G. Daily, I must say, because I think just her as Tommy Pickles, I think just her voice does such a good job of conveying the emotion that Tommy has, and I really appreciate and enjoy that. So shout out to you, E.G. Daily. But yeah, like his rage like scares Dill, and Dill's tears cause Tommy to calm down, which I definitely cried at when I was like a child watching this movie in the theater. I definitely cried at this. And I don't even have a brother. I have a sister. I have an older sister, as you may know. So anyway, yeah, so Tommy begins to calm down and the brothers begin to bond. So after the storm, they reunite with Phil, Lil, and Chucky, who, upon having a change of heart magically, they stop the monkeys from trying to take away Tommy and Dill. Angelica then comes about and she recovers her Cynthia doll and she reunites with the babies. And as they start to cross a damaged bridge, Angelica falls out of the Reptar wagon and hangs through a gap in the bridge above a raging river. And they are confronted by the monkeys, only to be scared off by a huge wolf, who attempts and attacks the babies until Spike, the dog, intervenes and fights the wolf, sacrificing himself. But of course, because this is a kid's movie, the dog can't die yet. So Stu, who for some godforsaken reason is on this like pterodactyl like invention he made, I don't know how they afford this house or anything, but like, okay, it's a cartoon, but like, whatever, it's fine. Charlotte is always the baddest of bitches, but amazing. But okay, whatever. But he made this like pterodactyl thing, right? That he's like, it's like a hang glider, really. He sees them from above and he crash lands into the Rangers' cabin. Again, the Rangers are David Spade and Whoopi Goldberg. Believing that he is the lizard, the babies ask him to bring Spike back instead of going home. And so Stu falls through the bridge as well, and he reveals that Spike survived his fall by landing into the struts of the bridge. And then the children are reunited with their parents, and they return back home, and then end of credits. So, and then over the credits, they have like I think Blackstreet's playing, and then like the I Throw My Toys Around is playing, and all this kind of stuff. And it's literally, if you watch the end credits, you'll pretty much see like what the movie is, which is also kind of fun because it's a children's movie. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like any sort of particular scenes that are like kind of like fun or like stand out or whatever. I mean, definitely some of the weird like humor in this movie, so like that kind of goes over kids' heads that you now kind of get as an adult, you know. So like they definitely make a circumcision joke, which kids won't get, but like I thought that was very funny. Like obviously one baby was like circumcised and the other one wasn't, and that's a whole little thing. If they're born under Venus, look for yeah, it's that kind of a thing. I mean, yeah. Oh god, I'm trying to think what else. I will say also, I noticed this. Betty DeVille gets some shit done, okay? Because she is the one who Betty DeVille's such an icon. We love her. But she is the one who gets everything prepared with Dee Dee having her kid, okay? And also, she's the one, when they find whatever the fuck, like, truck or whatever, she's like, all right, we need to get this shit together. You need to go look for these kids. All right, come on, chop, chop. Love Betty DeVille. We love her. Anyway, so she's just an icon, and she has the feminist, like, she has the female, like, little, symbol or whatever. Oh, amazing. Such a lesbian, big les energy, but loved it. Anyway, so I don't even know if she specifically is now a lesbian. I didn't watch that reboot or anything, so I don't know. Anybody who's like a reboot Rugrats fan, let me know, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think what else there is. The scene where the babies, all of the newborn babies are singing is still very uncanny and unsettling a little bit. The fact that it's also just like the random ass like musical artists is like just really funny to me. I don't know. And they probably did it because like they had kids or something, or like they just themselves were like I said, Lisa Loeb, like she just like found this show and just liked it, which I can kind of get. It's just like a fun little show to watch here and there when you're like in your 20s, or whatever. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if anything, like this movie in particular is definitely a it's such a slice of life type thing, and this is just on a grander scale, really, because it's a movie now. And so I think that if anything, I guess in terms of like cult status, I mean, I think like if anything, just having this be the first Nicktoon movie was kind of a big deal, you know, and obviously it made a lot of money, because of course it was a children's movie, and I think children's movies sometimes end up into the cult, if you will, just because, you know, because it's not the same as like just regular feature films all the time, you know, especially live action stuff. It just isn't. And I just think like Nickelodeon, I mean, it was a huge network, obviously. And like, you know, Rugrats obviously is a very popular thing, but you know, it's so weird. And again, maybe it's because I'm just turning into dust as we speak, but like, you know, I don't know how many people watch the Rugrats anymore. I don't know how many young people watch the Rugrats anymore, you know, the old one, and would know about this movie or anything like that. So it's like, I just think it's so important to always, you know, support this art that you like. And Rugrats is always something that is very close to my heart. It's something I grew up with and I really loved at one point. I remember playing like the PS1 game and like just being so interested in this little show that was so cool and was just kind of like weirdly done and drawn. And you know, Klasky Shupo has now gone on to like do so many different things. You know, I mean, they did like Rocket Power, As Told by Ginger, which of course, you know how I feel about As Told by Ginger, you know, and all these different shows, but it really started, I think, with something like the Rugrats, you know, and just being able to, because as you'll notice as I move through the rest of the episodes I'll be doing for next year and all this, you know, I want to make sure I'm paying respect and some homage, not homage really, but like being able to bring up these movies and something that means, you know, something that means something to me, you know, and to hopefully you as a listener and all that. But I just think with Rugrats specifically, like, I really loved the show. I did see this movie when I was a little young child, and I probably, of course, liked it because it was for me, you know? But I definitely think, like, this is still a movie that I think it still kind of holds up pretty much, you know? It's always about just, like, morality and, like, a lesson you learn and things of that sort. So it's nothing too super groundbreaking or anything, but there are certain parts that are really cool, like seeing, you know, like very Jewish characters and seeing like a black family living in the neighborhood and seeing like someone like Betty DeVille and like, you know, the fact that this was like co-created by a woman and also like voiced by a bunch of women, you know, it's just so cool to have had this as part of, I mean, it really was like, I'm not the hugest like super SpongeBob super fan or anything. I do like SpongeBob enough, but like, you know, but like Rugrats really was that girl back in the day. It just was, you know, that's the way to explain it, is that like before Rugrats before SpongeBob and before like Dora the Explorer, for example, Rugrats is what you had. Rugrats was the big one, and I guess Blue's Clues is also pretty big too, for the preschool sect, you know. But that's what this was, you know, and so it's hard not to talk about that and to be able to pay respect to it, and yeah, it's just a fun little movie. I really just think like it's a fun little movie. It's on Paramount. It's on YouTube right now with ads, so you can easily watch it. Yeah, I enjoyed myself seeing it. It was nice to watch it as an adult because I had not seen it as an adult. And it's just something that makes you feel kind of nice. You know, it's not too, there's parts of it that are annoying because it's literally babies and all that. Yeah, but like also like I can kind of push that to the side a little bit and just be like, I mean, that's the point. But I think the overall message there and the overall kind of journey that the kids go on is one that I really do enjoy. And I mean, I can't get over my admiration for this television show as a whole and what it did for just animation in general. I definitely think Rugrats is in that conversation of just, this was a big deal at one point. And I like that this, at least in some way, had the distinction of being an animated movie that was not a Disney movie that made a buttload of money, because it should have. And I'm glad it did. So, you know, and again, it's like 50-50. Like, some people liked it, some people hate it, whatever. But I am somebody who I still think does enjoy it, and I do like the series as a whole, and I will always sing the praises of Rugrats and all of that. But that's pretty much what I would say. I would say it's a fun movie. You know, if you want to see if your kids like it, great. You know, if you have children, or even if you yourself are like a big kid and you like animated stuff, it's always good to go back and watch things and, you know, see how you feel about them now. And I'm glad I did that with this particular series and all that, in this particular movie as well. So yeah, I give at least a thumbs up on the Rugrats movie. It's a fun movie, and you know, give it a shot. I don't think you'll regret it. As always, if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can do so via email at cultcinemacircle@gmail.com in case you want to give any movie or episode recommendations, give feedback on the show, or if you'd like to just say hey, I'm open to all of it. If you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can do so on Instagram and Instagram threads at Cult Cinema Circle. I tend to post what I'll be covering for the next week on there, post stories, things like that. On X, I'm at Cult Cinecircle. On there, I don't really post a whole lot, but if you want to follow the show, it's there for you to follow. And then on Letterboxd, I'm at Jesse, Jesse, Kremp, Kremp, all one word. On there, I log little movie reviews, I'll log what I'm watching, and then it's also a nice way to kind of see what I might be covering on the show in the future. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast on your podcatcher of choice, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm pretty much on all of them. Be sure to leave 5 stars and a 1 to 2 sentence review about the show, so we can grow the audience and then just spread the love all around. Be sure to tune in next week to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast, where returning guest Pickens Behringer and I will be covering all 9 movies in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. All I've got to say is, who will survive and what will be left of them? As always, thank you for taking the time to listen to the Cult Cinema Circle podcast. And remember, in my day, we had plenty of fun throwing rocks at each other. Big bag of dirt clods. That's what the kids want. Take care. Bye.